Welcome to our new podcast where we're presenting the knowledge and the wisdom of today. Now, today we're going to be talking specifically about the new approaches that we're going to be taking in nutrigenomics, nutrigenetics, functional medicine, wellness, inflammation sciences, referred to as many times inflammology. Okay, inflammology is the science of understanding inflammation, but we have to kind of look at where this all came from. Now, today we're in a beginning where information is going everywhere, and what we need to do is we need to bring the logic and the science. And what we have is a deficiency of a lot of providers that can connect the knowledge of today with the present ways of treating people. Now, the focus of what we're doing is we're going to be treating people with the fundamental philosophy that is based on functional medicine, that every person is special and unique. And you can't be boxing the treatment protocols for one individual for many. You can't say you're going to be a ketogenic patient without understanding their genomics, their genes, the way their infrastructure and their wiring is done. So what we do is we're going to present many individuals that have in their own specialties the ability to explain the ability or the understanding of what nutrigenomics stands for, as well as taking the concepts, as which we call it, from the kitchen to your genes, okay, mentality. Now, as we go through this process, I want to introduce certain individuals to you. Now, today we have AnaPaola Rodrigues Arciniega, who is a master nutritionist. Say hello, there she goes. And then we have Kenna Vaughn, who is the health coach at our institute. Now, what we want to do is we want to bring this information, and the world has changed. Of course, we have actually, things have become better, so to speak, because now we can actually communicate via online, assess laboratory findings, to come up with treatment plans and protocols as a team. And we really don't need to be in front of each other at all the time, other than for initial evaluation and comprehensive assessments. Now, having said that, what I'd like to do is I'd like to take a moment. You guys have met Kenna Vaughn in the past. So what I want to do is introduce our new master nutritionist, who is there to guide us and to help us in specific formulations and plans. She comes from a large family of healthcare providers. Her dad is a specialist. She'll allude to that. Her mother also is also a specialist in her rights. We need to go and find out what's going on, because in that sense, we had the genesis of AnaPaola Rodrigues Arciniega, who became a master nutritionist and has taught at many institutions. So I want to introduce her to you guys. And hello, Ana, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm doing fine. How are you?
We're doing well. We're all excited to have you here. We're excited about the information that you're going to be able to provide each and every one of our patients. We live in a different world. Let me ask you this question. How are you doing today, first of all? Are you guys ready? Where are you at? Where are we connecting with you?
Well, I'm at my home office. My home office in Ciudad Juarez right now. I'm doing fine. I'm prepared for this. I am very excited to be here, and I'm very thankful for this opportunity too.
Well, I know that you have a private practice, and one of the things is that we have a lot of people out here that have like PhDs and let's say laboratory science, but we have a lot of uniqueness, because not only do we have the deep level of knowledge, but we also have the clinical experience. Can you tell us a little bit about what you have done in the past in terms of your nutritional practice? And we'll go over your story. And I want to kind of ask you a little bit more also about your clinical research experiences. And not only that, but also your education experiences at the university level. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, as you might know, I'm a nutritionist. I come from my father is an internal medicine doctor. My mom worked as an OR nurse. They are both retired right now, but my father continues with his private practice. So that was like the only thing that they talked about at home. They talked about the hospital. They talked about their work, their patients, their surgeries, what we were eating. So that was my life, basically. So and that's like a very close memory for me. When I was little, I would my dad would work as an emergency doctor. So we would go to the ER and we would stay there and see like all crazy things happening, and that was my life. And of course, it's cool. But
You mentioned, as we were talking earlier, you mentioned something about your experience in the physical world in terms of fitness and the ballet and dancing and all that stuff. Tell us a little bit about that story in terms of how you first understood the normal mechanics, and that's kind of where you began the genesis of understanding nutrition as well.
okay, I think that actually has to do with the fact that I always thought about I'm never going to become a doctor. I'm never going to become a nurse. And here I am doing something similar. But my way of, well, I actually started with ballet as a way of rebellion. Like I wanted to be different, and this is my thing, and I loved it. And something about ballet and dance, because I did classical dance, that was ballet, I did jazz, I did modern dance, is that it's very like it's very specific. You have to be very specialized, and it's a passion. So it kind of mixes the art and being kind of an athlete. So you have to be very conscious about your body and about the things that are going on. And you're seeing yourself all of the time in that 360 meters. So you're actually really conscious about your body. So as I was telling you before, I was kind of an okay dancer, and I got offered a scholarship to go to UTEP actually for a dance major. And my mom and dad told me like, no, you can't do that because you're going to be a doctor, you're going to be a nurse or anything. So I actually had to reject that, and I was so mad about them that when my actual day of like the medical school exam, I went there and I passed it, and I said, I don't want to be at medical school. I want to be a nutritionist. So that was actually my rebellion like self. Like I was like a angry teenager that was like, no, I'm not gonna be whatever you want me to be, but nevertheless, here I am.
You know, a lot of the things that we have a beginning, and healthcare chooses us. No, we don't choose healthcare. It's a calling. So for you, it's very simple to see that you two had the calling. You just had to figure out which it was. So we're very pleased that you had that. Tell me a little bit about your educational background in terms of what you did to become a master nutritionist and reach the levels of accolade that you have had.
Okay, just after I decided to be a nutritionist, I actually had to move out of Ciudad Juarez because of all the violence that was going on back in 2007. So I moved out of Juarez, I went to Monterrey, and I started with my career. It was right there where my my career coordinator, that's how we call it here in Mexico. She was an RD, so she actually took me under her wing, and she told me like, okay, you're going this way because you have this profile, so you can be able to reach that level. So she kind of taught me from the very beginning of my career all the way through the end. So in Mexico, we have some good opportunities, but they are very, very small, very little, I mean. So there was like this big opportunity. It was like a national contest in which you can participate and eventually get an internship in research in one of the most important hospitals in Mexico. It's called the National Institute of Medical Sciences and Nutrition. And ever since I knew there was this hospital existed, I was like, I'm going to work there. I really need to work there. That was like my ambitious self talking. And she kind of led me that way, and she made me participate. She made me like the application, and I went on with that. I actually had to be like one of the top, like on the top of my class, to be able to participate in that well, at that level. So she pressured me a lot, but it was like the good amount of pressure. Anyway, I got in. It was great for me because everything I thought that would happen happened. So I was there. Of course, it was more difficult once you're in, because you have to be at that level of expertise and you have to rise up. So I tried to do whatever I could to stay disciplined and to make it happen. And I was going through we call it the year of social service here in Mexico, but it was actually my internship year. So I was going through that, and my mentor, her name is Isabel Castro Gonzalez. She was a tough cookie, actually, but she was an investigator, and she was really into fish and all of the biochemical processes that comes with or from omega-3 fatty acids. So it was like a very interesting topic for me because it has to do a lot with inflammation, and we try to link that nutritional part of the fish, the anti-inflammatory properties of omega-3 fatty acids, to the actual treatment of people with chronic kidney disease. So we try to do that, and that was amazing for me how food science can be actually applicable at a very small like in a very small and specific molecule can affect conditions so much. So I was amazed by that, actually. And she was the one who told me, like, hey, you can apply to a master's degree here, and you can actually come and work with me later. So that was like the thing that I said, like, whoa, I would be working here, not just like being a research assistant. So that's eventually what I wanted. I wanted to stay at Mexico City, and I wanted to be this amazing researcher. And that was actually she took me to the next level. She told me, like, okay, you should go to this school, to that school, to this other school, and just ask around. You will have my letter of recommendation, and you can stay here and make your thesis. So that for me was like an amazing opportunity. Nevertheless, I called back Miss Carla, who was my director coordinator, and she said, like, well, you were supposed to become an RD. What are you doing there? I mean, you should go back to Juarez and apply to an American school. But no, I stayed in Mexico City, and that's where I got my master's degree, and I continued with my research. It was not properly focused on omega-3 fatty acids. It was more into 3-methylamine, which is actually the flavor, or more like the scent of rotten fish.
Mm-hmm.
So
okay, gotcha.
Nobody
likes rotten fish. Nobody likes rotten fish.
No.
It's not a good smell, but I'm sure you had a good time researching that. I'll digress for a second. We all thank you for telling us the story. And what was her name again? The first instructor, the one that first got it?
My first instructor is Miss Carla.
Miss
Carla Lopez.
Miss Lopez. And what was she?
What was she? She was an RD. She studied in Palo Alto, California. I'm not quite sure which university. But
who was the second one, lady? Who was the second lady?
The second lady was my mentor at the Institute of Medicine Science and Nutrition. Her name is Isabel Castro. She is a very intelligent woman. She has a PhD in research, and she focuses mainly in fish and all of the food, like the medical applications of fish. So she's actually working. It's like a funny department. It's called the Department of Animal Nutrition. So we would
what I'm going to do here is I'm also going to ask Kenna exactly a little bit about her early and people that were important in her life. in a second. But one of the things you mentioned right now, Ana, you talked about specifically nutritional therapies that you were able to interact with and learn about omega-3s. That's really the world today. I mean, a lot of the people are focused on inflammation as a source of cardiac issues, diabetes, brain disorders of all sorts. And we're finding that inflammation, good inflammation is good, but when it goes too long and it becomes chronic, we end up having many pathologies. So one of the areas that we have here in El Paso, when I first started working in El Paso, there was only 1 or 2 kidney centers. Now we have about 30 kidney centers. We're seeing that nephrology is a huge component, and also intestinal medicine is a big issue on how to restore things. But you mentioned something about your experience with chronic kidney disease, CKD. Tell me a little bit about your experience with chronic kidney disease.
Well, it actually started right there in the National Institute of Medical Sciences and Nutrition. It has a huge name.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it started right there because what Dr. Castro wanted to do is to link the functions of omega-3 fatty acids in a food that is practically prohibited for kidney patients to eat because well, one of the treatments for kidney disease is to actually reduce the amount of protein that patients are allowed to have because they have to improve the function of the glomeruli. So that's like thing one in the treatment of chronic kidney disease. So what we try to do is that we try to find the fish species that would be more suitable for each kind of patient in the different stages of chronic kidney disease. Those stages of chronic kidney disease are mainly focused in the characterization or the categories published by the Kadoki guidelines. So we would actually try to match the amount of protein per 100 grams, the amount of omega-3 fatty acids, the amount of calcium, the amount of phosphorus, which is really important for the.
Let me start prefacing you there. Chronic kidney disease has multiple stages, and it's pretty much 5. Okay, the first stage all the way to the 5th stage. Each is measured by what you call the glomerular filtration rate, or EGFR. Okay, and what we do is we look at kidney function based on even people beginning usually around a number of 60, and it starts progressing lower and lower and lower to the point where you're only at, let's say, 10% function. You have reached what we call stage 5. What the story is and what has happened with chronic kidney disease is for many times from in the past, once you had chronic kidney disease of 3, people just assumed you would just travel into the 4 and 5 and eventually need dialysis. However, the world has changed. So all these studies and all these sciences have been forged in order to see how we can actually stop, prevent, and even recover kidney function. So one of the things, so tell us a little bit about how each stage was different for you.
Well, actually, we only kind of compared them together, and we made a guideline, and we made actually like recipes for people to use fish, because there's like a very important issue here in Mexico. We have around 80 edible fish species that we can take out of the ocean and cook them, and boom, we can eat it, and they are awesome. And also, I have to ask that here in Mexico, fish, it's kind of, well, it ranges a lot in price. So you can actually choose a very cheap species of fish and cook it, and it will have the same amount or even more omega-3 fatty acid than salmon. So you can do whatever you want with fish if you know what kind of fish and what amount of money you want to spend on fish. So we try to do that, and we try to do that in every single level, because, as I told you before, socioeconomical problems here in Mexico are a big deal. So we actually published an article about how the price didn't even matter. if you want to get good nutrition, you are able to have it at any price. So it wouldn't matter if you would take salmon out of your market, or you can take sardine, which is a very cheap fish here in Mexico, and you can have the same amount of omega-3 fatty acid. So that was one thing we did. Another thing that I've noticed going through each and every single stage of the Karaoke guidelines is that, man, chronic disease and diet is very, well, in terms of diet, is very limiting. So I think we did a very good practical investigation. We took the science and we tried to stick it as much as we could to the practical issues here in Mexico. So yeah,
when you mention that, I have to reflect back on my grandmother. Back in the day, my grandmother, when she did a lot of this feeding us, and we did come up with the old styles, old Latino ways, they would kind of give you, like cod liver oil, okay? And cod liver oil was one of the common things. And when they would do that, it was horrible as a kid, but they knew back then how cod liver was. Well, if we know, the cod is one of the largest formers of omega-3s, right? So cod liver oil was very big. Today we know that the anchovy is one of the greatest omega-3, and it's not the most expensive either. So one of the things is that you can vary the types of things. One of the things that you bring to this team of ours is that we now bring a collaborative team that brings clinical experience and brings it home to each patient. As we go through that process, what we're going to do is we're going to learn not only about omegas, but how it affects different organ systems. It may seem at times that we're trying to bite a lot of the knowledge out, but we'll bring it in fragments. And we're going to be able to go over those deep concepts. Now, also, you mentioned a little bit in terms of also your research. You went through and you also had a level of education where you actually taught students. Tell me what that experience was like.
well, I was coming back. Well, I actually had to come back from Mexico City, which I love. I love Mexico City. I don't know, I was crazy about that city and about what I was, about the things that I was doing right there. Yeah, sure. So I came back. I was really, really sad, and I remember I had this amazing opportunity to start my private practice alongside with my father. So I was doing that at the same time that I started that I actually applied for a job or for a career in my local university, which is actually the university in which I started nutrition and my nutritional career. So I went there. They gave me free access. They gave me like 4 classes, which was actually like really cool. And
Yeah.
I started with I think that the first one was kind of a laboratory one, and it was about dietetic calculations. So I had to go through all of the different stages of life with my students, and I had to teach them about energy requirements and how to basically calculate macros and macros for different stages of life. So the cool part about this laboratory or this workshop, I think it was more like a workshop, is that it was really practical because it was in a kitchen. So I would tell them to calculate a diet for a specific patient, let's say a 36-year-old woman, a healthy woman with this amount of weight and this height. And they will calculate it, they will give me macros, and after that they would actually try to provide those macros with we call it the Mexican equivalencies of food. So it's actually based on the Mayo Clinic carbs counting process. So that was what I was trying to teach my patients. And funny enough, I try to merge that information about the system of the Mexican equivalencies of food with a 100-gram informational book that we have that actually described all of the different foods and the different amount of carbohydrates, the different amount of proteins and everything, and lipids too. And that book was actually edited by me while I was working with Dr. Castro, and that was amazing. That's like when you notice your life like gives like a full circle, and you know
Yes.
that you're applying exactly what you did. So it was really, it was like giving back. So I really enjoyed
It's,
it.
yes, you're absolutely right. And one of the things is that as we do these processes, um, the team we have can go right to the patients, right to
Oh,
the confusion that they have, and we facilitate the knowledge. So one of the things is about nutrition, there's a lot of confusion in that process. So what we want to do is we want to bring it in. I know you mentioned that there were certain basic things that people did not know about. It's the same thing here. It's people need to understand how to read labels, for example,
oh,
understand what those labels mean. Tell us your experience about patients that want to change their lives and want to really take control of their nutritional components and be able to facilitate a great healthy life, but there is the confusion
yeah.
box, that little thing that kind of is very elusive to understanding the grams, the milligrams, the calories, the caloric content, and the nutritional uptake of these foods. Tell us what you've learned as you have worked with patients, or clinically, as well as through therapeutic modules that or protocols that you've used. Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, one thing that comes to mind is that, well, as I told you before, my father has his own private practice, internal medicine practice. So I tend to see a lot of patients who are either diabetic or have chronic kidney disease. So most of the times, I know that they have been patients of my father from about 20 years, and they are still dealing with hyperglycemic mm, processes, and they really want to know all about nutrition because they try to make some changes. They try to count carbs. They try to get information wherever they can. And one thing that I think really speaks to me is that you have to talk to them in the same way that they are talking to you. You don't have to use like all these amazing words. You really have to connect with them and ask them exactly what they want to know or what they want to hear, because that's essential. You have to connect with your patient. Another thing is that there's a lot of information about nutrition, and most of it is like contradictory. So you have to be very, I don't know, like you would have to see my patients. They sometimes do not know anything about it. They are so confused. They just want to learn. And that's actually like the easiest patient, because uh, like if you provide a good menu to them, they will use it, but they won't ask any questions because they are afraid to do so. And the other part are the patients that are very knowledgeable, or they kind of read a lot about nutritional facts, and you want to kind of be with them because they know all of the new stuff. The patient will always be like the person who sets the bar. So you have to go with them. It always depends on the kind of way that your patient wants to be. So um, I don't know if you can remind me the
Yes.
question.
The other thing I wanted to ask you is specifically your father's name. What's his father's name? What's your father's name?
Jose Antonio Rodrigues Vaughn.
That's awesome. All right. And your mom's name?
María del Refugio
And,
Arciniega. She's gonna hate me for that.
well, I have to say AnaPaola Rodrigues Arciniega every single time. So I'll make sure we say the whole name this time. Okay.
Yeah.
What I want you guys to see, and I want all my listeners to see, is that we are taking the fundamentals of inflammation, bringing in nutritional experts, okay, that have a large amount of treatment protocols that we can do. But in modern medicine, what we learned when I was in school back in the 80s and 90s, back in the day, I've been practicing for over 30 years. Now, one of the things that I've learned is that the world has changed. When I went to school, genetics was they were working on it. It was something where they were trying to work on genomes. Give you an idea, they had the 386 computer. So it was still DOS 7. They were still working on that. So Microsoft had not come out. Today, we have supercomputers that can actually calculate and assess in virtually a couple of days what the human genome is offering each individual patient. And that has opened up a huge gamut or a huge arena of area where we can begin the treatment protocols. So as we now talk about the kitchen and the foods and the nutritional components and how to build a nutritional plan for an individual, because we now follow the functional medicine, functional wellness protocols, which are linked in its collateral sciences to different sorts of organ systems and different mechanisms, hormonal balances, and a lot of things that relate back to the musculoskeletal system. So my draw in this process has always been understanding how inflammation is related to food. Now, as we do that, we now have different experts. Now, on the other side of things, which is at the genomic side of things, we basically have an expert here, Kenna Vaughn, who is very well versed in nutrigenomics, nutrigenetics, but she's also a individual health coach. So, Kenna, if you're able to break free for a second, tell us a little bit about yourself in terms of what you do in terms of health coaching and applied sciences to each patient that comes into our facilities.
Of course, I would love to. So when a patient first comes to us, similar to what Ana was saying, is a lot of times they're just very confused because there's so much information out there and they just really want something that'll work for them. Most of the time they've tried many different things and they're just not working out because everybody is different. And so that's where our practice kind of takes it into the hands of the genomics and the genome, because we understand and now we have that technology to determine how each individual is different and how we can make that plan as according to them and their specific genes. Not everybody processes, fats, carbs, and anything the same way. So we really take that one-on-one tailored approach, and that's where I come in with health coaching to look at those genomics and also then to create lifestyle changes that go with those genomics. And these lifestyle changes can vary from working with Ana on their diet to exercise plans, meditation. There's just so much that really goes into being fully healthy. It's not all just drink your water and eat your food. There's so many different components of it. And so that's where I really take them in and listen to what they're looking for, because one thing that you really need to be successful is to hear your patients. We have to hear what they want. We can't give them a plan if they're not interested in that kind of lifestyle at all, because it just won't work. And so that's kind of what I do with that side of the clinic.
You bring us a special moment in your time that you have brought together for us. You just are a recent new mommy, huh?
Yes.
Yes, and we can hear your new versions of you on the other side there. So I know that understanding, let's say genetics or the metabolic processes in order to develop a child's in the proper way is drastically changed. This stuff did not exist in the 80s and 90s. Today, we're at the forefront of understanding what genomics is. I know that you worked with, or you were actually educated by Joelle Jaffe, and she's a PhD in the 3x4 genomics system. I think it's 3x4 genetics, right? Correct. And then what she does is that she actually goes deep into the sciences, or we go actually into the sciences of understanding metabolic processes and come up with tailored mechanical or treatment protocols, right? Mechanical or treatment protocols that can actually affect an individual based on their genomic presentation. Tell us a little bit about your experience in understanding the human genetics and human genomics from nutrigenetics, nutrigenomics, which are kind of complex subject matters, but tell us what you learned.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Well, I don't think I can really wrap it up in just a few sentences because there's so much information. Yeah, there's a lot. But it has really impacted, even speaking personally myself, and the foods that I've kind of created for my family dinners. And one thing that is funny is we learn all about SNPs, which is the
Single
how
nucleotide polymorphisms.
yes, so, exactly. Everybody's are different, and so I personally love spinach. I don't think it has really a taste, so I throw it in everything. I throw it in my morning smoothies, I throw it in spaghetti, I throw it in every single thing. Whereas my husband, he can definitely always taste the spinach, and I always thought he was just being dramatic until I had taken her courses and learned further about these SNPs, and that some people actually have the way that they're SNPed is their vegetables taste very, very bitter to them. And when I got my own genetic result back, it turns out that I don't have that SNP, which is why I love spinach and throw it in everything. And so now whenever I make a meal and my husband doesn't like it, instead of hurting my feelings, he tells me, well, I'm just not SNPed that way. So I just come not to eat that.
I don't want to talk. You know what? You opened the door with the SNPs thing, and I was like, SNP, S, apostrophe S, not S and not PS. There you go. So I definitely appreciate your husband's and you actually working it out, because a lot of people don't know the connection between SNPs. Now, we live in a world where I'd venture to say, I say that we're in the year 2020 in the term of medicine and nutrition. But because we've been able to open up a new chasm, a new world of genetics, I think that in modern medicine, we are actually in the year 2020, one, in terms of nutrigenomics and nutrigenetics, but we feel as doctors that we're living in the 1800s when it comes to genetics. So doctors around the world are using technologies like the edit, the CRISPR, to be able to read and understand what is actually happening in the genomes. And I will tell you this, every single day there's new reports on new genes and how we can influence them based on the diet. You mentioned something that was very interesting. You mentioned about lifestyle changes, Kenna. And one of the things that we've learned is that when we see a tree, we think that's the tree, but beyond the tree, there's a whole root system. And that's what we call lifestyle changes. The nutrition, the stresses, the emotional components. Women are different than men in terms of their abilities to handle, as well as their more abilities in certain areas. So what we need to do is understand that we're different. We need to understand that we have to understand that lifestyle changes influences not only our stress levels, but our metabolic processes at the molecular level, at the genomics level. So what we've learned in genomics is that our genes are listening. It may seem weird what we're saying, but they're listening to what we do to it with stresses, the foods, the toxins, all those kind of things are important to understand because those are mitigating factors that determine the final fate of someone's life. Now, if you have a genetics, a SNP, does that mean that you're destined to a disease? Well, not necessarily. What we're learning is the genetics is the gun and your lifestyle is the trigger, so to speak. So those are real things. And what we look at life is that we're trying to figure out what things to trigger for the positive and eliminate those things that are negative. Each individual is different. So working with Dr. Joelle Jaffe and her clan at 3x4 Genetics, those cats, they're just at the highest level. They're from South Africa, where they're based out of, and they're reaching around the world. And they're actually people that are changing the way that doctors around the world are understanding that there is a relation between genetics and nutrition as well as outcomes. We don't have to wait till the clinical presentations occur. We don't have to wait till our blood sugar's at 200 before we realize that, oops, we are diabetic, and then ultimately have to take medications for that. But what we do have is the ability of sensing the changes in the individual, adapting to their particular lives and making it better for them. So what I want to do is I wanted to present you an amazing team here. Today is just the beginning. We're going to be discussing other matters and much more complex issues regarding nutrition and genomics. We're going to always have the fundamental basis that we're going to take the kitchen to the genes and to the lifestyle. So from lifestyle experiences to hopefully make everyone, we got a certain amount of years. We sometimes say, God only knows, but according to statistics, if we do things right, if we do things well, if we manage our lives, other than God wants us, he'll take us right now, but we can influence our bodies to hopefully last 100 good years. Okay. There are certain truths to these things. So what we want to do is help people we don't have to be called the fattest, sweatiest town in El Paso, by other people. We have to change the way we are. So by first educating, understanding, assimilating information, and having teachers and healthcare providers teach us the new level. What we have is we have a situation right now where we have doctors in a quandary. We know the information's in there, but we don't have people to go deep into the laboratory findings and the genetic understanding to bring that to the people. Make sense? And all that information, as we bring it to the individuals one by one, we can basically now start changing lives one person at a time. So it's not like the same plan as we indicated earlier that meets everybody, but we have to have a team that understands collaboratively all the benefits. We have to gastroenterologists. We have to have like Anna has her internal medicine, emergency room. We have to see the correlation where you can actually weave a line in between all these sciences. As we do that, we have to have people in their cockpits of a wealth of information to be able to add, adjust, to change, to adapt to the dynamics of the body. Well, interestingly, we're not supposed to know all this stuff. People before, let's say the Egyptian times, they did things well. They knew well. Did they know genomics? No, you don't have to know that, but we do know that certain things are truths. But now we understand why. Now we have the ability to understand the ability to see how the body adapts, and know that one individual is not the same as the other individual. In terms of Kenna's example of just the taste sensation, well, if you have taste bitter, well, you taste, if you drink mud, it's not tasty, but to you, mud tastes like, putty, right? So the whole idea is we have to look at the different dynamics of what each individual has and adapt to their particular lives. Now, functional medicine, functional wellness, the sciences of genomics has now integrated, because now everyone has been talking about nutrition for centuries. Everyone has talked about, doctors, clinical matters for centuries, whether Western or Eastern medicine. Now there's a new cat in town. Okay, it's the genome. Okay, the genome experts, right? So everyone, when they walk in, looks towards the genomics guys, like, what's going on? What's happening there? What is it that we don't know inside the magical box called the nucleoli, the DNA of every single cell that we have? We understand that today the intelligence of the human body is far beyond our grasp. However, we're getting a little bit of sitting down, and we're sitting next to the nuclei and seeing that whatever goes on in that turbine of the nucleoli is really what determines the fate of individuals. Now we can adapt and deal with it, because now we have printed information that says what we've learned today is this, and what we're going to be making the changes so that you no longer trigger or fire abnormal reactions in the body. So I welcome you guys both, AnaPaola, Rodrigues, Arciniega, Kenna, Vaughn. Okay, so everyone's got a long name. I'm the only one with a Alexander David Jimenez. Depends if that's what my mom would say, Alexander David Jimenez, right? I knew I was in trouble. So, and then I was ducking for the shoe, right? So I knew that I had to deal with those issues. So I want to thank you all for listening in. And the new beginning is going to be focused on nutrition, genomics, the concepts of wellness. We are the nutritional blitz team. So we'll come up where there was an old story I think Kenna was talking about, and she was talking about the ballroom blitz. Well, that was a crazy cool song, but the reality is that we're going to be the blitz team when it comes to El Paso, when it comes to nutrition, wellness, genomics, and bringing the information out so that it can clinically affect. And we will bring experts from different arenas, from all specialties in their scopes. They'll be discussing exactly what they do, how they do it, and what it means to each individual one of these dynamics in life. So I welcome you guys. I thank you. And I look forward to this new discourse, these new cohort relationships that we're going to be able to develop. And if we really kick it hard, we're really going to be able to make an impact and really change people's lives. And if we can, the ultimate life is to live, love, and matter. Because when we live life, when we love and we matter more, it makes a big difference. So that was a lesson I learned from Mrs. Jameson, my English teacher, back in school, who told me that I was lost. And she told me that you need to live, love, and matter. And I was confused. And I basically said, you know what, fine. You know what, I'll learn. And as life has come on, and I have worked many years, I realized that live, loving, and mattering is the basis of what life's about. It is the basis of what God wants for us. And ultimately, it needs to begin with the fact that, this ain't possible unless God came through for it. So I look for the best, and I look forward to teaching you guys and sharing what we find and be able to clinically give you some implications or teachings or some sort of methods and paths in order to make people better and healthier. So God bless. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.